This episode is presented by Anchor Branding.
Well, if people actually believe the things I did on stage, they wouldn't clap, they'd scream. I mean, think of sawing a woman in half.
Mr. Angier, have you considered the cost of such a machine?
Price is not an object.
Perhaps not, but have you considered the cost?
Well, sure, I follow.
Go home. Forget this thing. I can recognize an obsession. No good will come of it.
Well, hasn't good come of your obsessions?
At first, but I followed them too long. I am their slave. And one day they will choose to destroy me.
If you understand an obsession, then you know you won't change my mind.
So be it.
Okay, I want to start with this. Normally on this show, if someone has seen the movie, we hope that our podcast makes them like the movie more.
Yeah.
And if they haven't seen the movie, we hope that our podcast would make them want to go see the movie.
Mm-hmm.
For this movie specifically, I don't want to discourage people from listening to our podcast, but I want people to watch the movie and then come back and listen to this podcast and then watch the movie again.
Yes. I will say, as we recommend the movie, there is some language, there's some kind of dark scenes. So if you feel convicted by that, check out the Parents Guide. But yeah, we love it. I actually had the exact same thought with this one, especially since so much of the movie centers around a twist.
So many twists and turns, and I just enjoy showing people this movie for the first time.
Yeah.
We're obviously going to talk about the plot and kind of ruin all of the turns and whatnot if you haven't seen it. So, listener, that's my encouragement to you. And for a movie with a lot of twists and turns, it's very rewatchable in my mind.
Yep.
Where you watch it the first time and you're like blown away. Specifically, the final scene, I remember watching for the first time and being like, wow. Then you watch it again, you find all the little details
So many
you
hints.
missed. You watch it a third time, you see even like a deeper layer of all these things you missed.
Yeah.
And then, if you give it enough time, a couple years, like I did, and then you watch it a fourth time,
Forget a little
you
bit.
forget it all. You
Yeah.
get to enjoy it all over again.
Yeah, totally. Like you almost see the difference. Spoilers are starting. You can see the difference in the performance almost of the two different Bordens.
Yeah.
Which you can watch a movie and not really pick up on that because this is not true of Christian Bale, but there are bad actors where their character will be wildly different from scene to scene. And so whenever you watch it again, it's like, oh, I can almost point out which Borden is in what scene.
Yeah, exactly. There's certain little words or phrases that I picked up on the next time, but then, third time or whatever you watch it, you find something else to that same phrase. Most of the movie is almost given away by the scene where Borden meets his wife. Christian Bale's character meets his wife.
Yeah.
But where's his brother? Because that, totally reveals his method. He has a twin brother.
Mm-hmm.
One of them ends up getting killed for the trick, sacrificing for the trick. Kind of just wraps up the whole movie there. But then when he goes and throws it away, he goes, "You're the lucky one today," and lets the live one out, reflecting how Angier talks about he didn't know if he was going to be the one in the box or the one who came out. So there's a lot of great reveals to it. So the segment that I want to get into is stress test. So, listener, that's our segment where we throw out a theory that we have and then a couple of facts about it, and we stress test, could this theory be true?
So I have a theory as well. Do you want to go
Yes,
yours
a
first?
double stress test, if you will.
It'd be awesome if it was the same theory. I doubt it.
I bet someone else has come up with my theory. I know I'm not the only one.
Okay.
So here's my theory. The movie presents that Angier, Hugh Jackman, went to Tesla and made a machine to clone himself, whereas Borden has had a twin.
Yes.
My theory, it's not a twin. It is a clone. He just didn't kill his clone like Hugh Jackman's character did.
Interesting.
So that scene we talked about, the little boy and the bird, he said, "Where's his brother?"
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, Hugh Jackman says, "A brother, a twin."
Mm-hmm.
And so you think, oh, it's a twin. Borden never confirms.
Mm-hmm.
He never says yes. Tesla acted like he could do the machine that Angier wanted. He's like,
Nothing is impossible, Mr. Angier. What you want is simply expensive.
I think his confidence was because he had made a cloning machine and was like, oh, I can just tweak
I
it
see.
and, take away one and make it a teleportation machine. We know that Borden had been to Tesla because his code word for his journal was Tesla before he even planned to give the journal to Angier. Like, from all the previous days, still his keyword, his passkey was Tesla. So I think he had been to Tesla. He made him a clone, and then he just didn't kill his clone, and they lived their life. Final thing is, a twin would not be exact. Like, little vocal differences, little facial differences. No twins are like exact replications of each other. But when they're having the argument about if it is a double or not, and Michael Caine says, I use a bloody double. He's
The same man comes out at the end.
Yeah, he's very sure. He's like exactly the same. Scarlett Johansson's character is like, you can see the padding in the fingers. So if they're looking for padding in the fingers, that means they're looking at every detail. And that's the only one that like is, oh, you can see he's missing fingers. So clearly he is detailed to the extreme, exactly the same. Thoughts?
Okay, here are my thoughts. The implications of that is that he went to Tesla, got a clone, left the machine behind, or whatever he does with the machine, only uses it once. Then they do like their double life. That means that Borden is then basically giving away half of his life to pretend to be this mute engineer, however you say it.
Well, so Angier could go and have Tesla make him a machine because he's actually Lord Cordlow and he's super rich. So he had tons of money to do it. Borden is not rich. So Borden volunteered. So he doesn't own the machine. Tesla made the machine. Borden volunteered as a test subject of like, oh, I heard that you're working on a cloning machine. I volunteer to, duplicate my life. So then he leaves without the machine because it's not his.
Interesting. You make a good case. One piece of your case that I don't think is true is I don't think he ever went to see Tesla. I think Tesla was always a red herring so that he could say that to Angier. Like,
well, he did have to get the electricity for his show. Like,
yeah,
that's
but
a Tesla machine.
Didn't have to be. Could have been. He's not the only one with
They
electricity.
showed it at the science fair.
Yeah.
And everyone was freaked out because it was Tesla's machine that was making electricity fly across the room.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I guess he was in the room for that. Wait, when was in the timeline the point when they're both at the Tesla thing? Is that in London or is that in America?
It's in London because it's before Borden's in jail and all that kind of stuff.
I think he just bought that for showmanship. I think that the entire diary is created for him to give it away. I think that's true of both of the diaries.
Yeah.
But I will say you make a strong case. The exact nature of the twin thing is tricky to parse out because it's just the same actor.
You could make it make sense.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other holes there. I feel like their personalities are pretty distinctly different. Yeah. Like one of them is mean and loves Scarlett Johansson, Olivia. One of them is a lot softer. You can tell one of them wants to settle down with Sarah. One of them wants to like basically just live as a magician,
Yeah. But I kind of think if my clone theory would be real, which I don't think Christopher Nolan intended it that way.
Yeah.
But I kind of think they were the same until he met Sarah and fell in love. One of them did, one of them didn't. That's what softened him. And then the other one had to be married to this stranger woman that he didn't actually love. So he gets more hardened and mean because of it.
I like the theory.
Thank you. I'm sure other people out there have thought of that and maybe thought of some more details that I didn't think about.
I like it.
So that's
Good.
theory 1. Now we have theory 2 from Kyle.
All right, here's theory 2. Not too dissimilar, but it is with our other protagonist. So Angier gets the cloning machine. Once he uses it in his act, the man on stage goes into the box, drowns. The blind stagehand takes him away. They do this every night, they say. There's 2 tests we see before that setup. One, he has the gun. It says something to the effect of like, I made precautions because if something happened, I didn't want to live long that way. Kind of implying like a mutation or something.
Right.
A certain gene being activated. X gene.
No.
The The second time is whenever they're trying to get the theater, or that promoter or whoever that guy is, who's like, it's not often to see real magic. So he does clone himself and ends up in the rafters of the thing. I guess maybe he's already set up the tank and everything. For the sake of the theory, I think there's then in that building 2 Angiers. And Angier says to Cutter, he's like, there's only one thing left for me to do. Like, I'm going to do one last show and then I'm walking away, is what he said. Mm-hmm. And so that version of him that is in the Prestige in that trial run ends up going on stage, sees Borden come up on stage. That's how he knows not to like come out. So he knew that he was on stage. So he had the satisfaction of knowing, okay, I win. Yeah. And so my theory is the one who went into the box, but in the theory did not go into the box in that trial is still out there. That version of Angier drops down, escapes, but then he still has this root of bitterness. And so that is the Lord Caldo that we see in the end. That's like adopting Borden's daughter. Because again, he said, I'm going to walk away after this is done. But then there's this weird, almost like sinister aftermath of like, once Borden's in jail, he's writing the fake diary. He tries to adopt the daughter. He wants to buy the machine back, all this stuff. So the one who finalized his performance left, went and lived his own life, moved back to America or something. And this crazy monster that we see in the end is actually the clone that went into the box in his trial run.
So in this theory, though, are you assuming on that initial trial run, that clone didn't go into the box? And that's the one.
Yeah, the second one, yeah.
Then when he did his final run of shows, all those other clones went into the box and drowned.
Correct.
Because he did that final show. That's what put Borden in jail.
Right. And so nobody could have seen him at the end of the act.
Yeah. Interesting. So the one who did the final show, you're saying he like moved to America.
Yeah, just moved on with his life.
He just did his final show and was out.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could say against that would be when he does the trial run and they're doing it to the promoter, to the theater promoter. So he's prepared for it. I don't think he would just let a clone drop through and not have something in place to contain him.
Probably so.
Unless, I could tweak your theory a bit.
Okay.
Unless that first time, which we see him do with the gun.
He goes, no.
And then he goes, fine, I won't shoot you. I'm going to America. You finish this work here. Well, so from that clone, they worked out a deal.
They cloned from that clone.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to go back to Colorado. The other clone's like, all right, fine, I'll finish this. Okay,
let's just a cold man.
Let's get into the meat of the Prestige. Little recap, listener. Again, I hope you have seen this movie. If you haven't, 2 rival magicians in the 19th century, Robert Angier and Alfred Borden, become obsessed with outdoing each other after a tragic accident turns them into enemies. As their rivalry escalates, both men take extreme personal sacrifice to protect their secrets and achieve the ultimate illusion. Their pursuit of greatness ultimately leads to deception, destruction, and the loss of everything they once held dear.
Yep.
So the idea that I want to talk about, and I think the main kind of theme of this movie, is the cost of an obsession. Them devoting everything to their passion, their craft, something that matters to them, ultimately doesn't matter in the rest of their life and ends up ruining their lives. So really, I want to base this conversation around Matthew 16:26, which is, for what will it profit a man if he gains the world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? This idea that Hugh Jackman's character and Christian Bale's character dedicate everything for this ultimate illusion to be the greatest magician, and it ends up in them losing their own lives and anyone that they love.
Every magic trick consists of 3 parts, or acts. The first part is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary, a deck of cards, a bird, or a man. The second act is called the turn. The magician takes the ordinary something and makes it do something extraordinary. You're looking for the secret, but you won't find it. Because, of course, you're not really looking. You don't really want to know. You want to be fooled. But you wouldn't clap yet, because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back.
The something ordinary at the start, like you said, is like the desire for greatness.
Yeah.
This episode is, in my mind, the perfect marriage to our previous episode on the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
And so in that episode, what we talk about is discipline, right? Pursuing a goal, like in our case, pursuing intimacy with God and being more like Jesus through continued repetition and action.
Yeah.
Right. This movie almost shows us what happens whenever that discipline and desire for a goal is applied to something bad. Like almost if it's applied in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's a helpful preface to throw out Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. What we're not saying is don't be passionate and don't work hard and don't strive for greatness.
Yeah.
Strive to be great.
Sure.
But this movie shows us the danger of its obsession. And I think there's an important distinction there that we'll see play out through these characters.
Yes, exactly. It's making something else an idol in your life. The ultimate goal for them, the pursuit of their entire life, is to be the greatest magician. And how that obsession leads to destruction. Even in Borden's journal, he says, we were two young men at the start of a great career. Just two young men, two young magicians. They are stagehands for this other magician. That's kind of where their rivalry starts.
They're obsessed with this idea of being great. And really, even for Hugh Jackman's character, it's not even to be great initially. Like, he does want to be a great magician, but once his wife dies, it becomes about him and Christian Bale.
Hugh Jackman's wife, who I only know as the older sister on Cheaper by the Dozen. It's literally the only other thing I've seen her in.
Wow, I didn't even think about that.
And
the one who's dating Ashton.
Yeah.
Wow.
She was married to Hugh Jackman and she was dating Ashton Kutcher. But she dies tragically in this accident, this magic act. And that's where their rivalry starts.
And you can kind of start to see when other characters' red flags start to go up of like, whoa, like you're kind of going a little too far. Like you're pushing in a little bit too much because this is all they think about. This is all they focus on. And it's interesting to see how the further he pushes in, the way that his goals change.
Yeah, he seems content in that first scene. Borden's the one who's like striving for greatness. But later on, Christian Bale's character finds a wife and he seems content. He's doing magic. He's got a wife. He has a kid. From an audience perspective, you're like, they're in the career they want. They have these points early on in the movie where you feel like they've done it almost, and they keep pushing because of their obsession for this great trick or revenge. They keep pushing past that. Ecclesiastes 5:10, Solomon is the richest man who ever existed. Talks about whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless.
Yep.
He's laying it out for us like, hey, this pursuit of this worldly thing, no matter how much you get, it will not be enough.
Yeah. And I mean, Solomon goes on in that couple chapters there and talks about success of having big, great projects and conquering kingdoms and sexual conquest and like all these things that are seen as successful. And he applies that same logic to it. Like, no matter how much I get, I'm still left empty.
Yeah. And so they start out as these ordinary magicians, and you can kind of see, apparently in this century of London, there's lots of magicians because they'll just go work for one and then they'll go see another show. And I'm like, man, magicians aren't popping like they used to be.
Yeah. I did have the thought, this is a fun setting for this movie of like, electricity exists, but he's like
kind of scary.
The whole town is electrified. There's magic happening in the world, and the world is like, ooh, I wonder what else is possible.
Yeah, it's the turn of this technological advancement.
Yeah.
And we will be right back.
Hey, listener, we just want to take a pause and say thank you for listening. We love getting to do this podcast, and it's listeners like you that make it possible for us. If you're not following us wherever you get your podcasts, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, do it. That way you can stay in the loop every time a new episode drops. If you know anybody who would love this episode or any of the other movies we've covered, don't be afraid to go ahead and share it with them. That would help us out so much, and we would really appreciate it. Thank you so much again for listening.
All right, listener, let's talk branding. Because if you want your brand to actually stand out, you need Anchor Branding Company. These guys are the pros at turning your logo into something people actually want to wear, want to use, or show off. From premium custom apparel and branded merch to eye-catching office signage or more, they do it all. And if you're thinking, I want to get my company's gear out there, but I don't want to pack a million boxes, good news. They do it all. They do everything for you. You need some uniforms? You need a swag store? You need something else? Anchor Branding Co. makes it all happen. Go to anchor-branding.com to get started today. Because if your brand is going to make some waves, you should probably have an anchor. And back to the show. Something fun that I didn't note before on the rewatch, like one of those things you don't see the first time, is he starts out with that line that we've mentioned, we were two young men at the start of a great career. Mm-hmm. So you think he's talking about Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale. But once you know he has a brother, he's talking about him and his brother.
Interesting.
We were two young men living the same life starting out. And then I always thought it was a little odd because, you know, Christian Bale wants to try this other knot. It'll be better. Michael Caine's like, you know, it's not a wet knot. If she doesn't slip out in time, the rope will swell up and she can't get out. Then he does that other knot, and that's what she dies as a result. And then when Hugh Jackman confronts him, he's like, what knot did you tie? And Christian Bale's like, I don't know. And I always thought, that's really weird. Clearly, you did the other knot, but it's the other brother who actually doesn't know because he wasn't the one there tying the knot.
Whenever Hugh Jackman comes to volunteer for the bullet catch. And this is...
Which, by the way, how are they getting on stage every time?
I mean...
There's multiple times where they get called up on stage.
And you gotta think they're coming like every night.
If they didn't get called up on stage, this movie is shot.
Yeah. He's got the big beard and he goes to do the bullet catch. Yeah. And that point to me is kind of the turn. Like that's when something ordinary becomes something extraordinary. Whenever their hatred is kind of starting to be fully realized.
Yeah, that's the turning point. They both have committed to this life of obsession. Hugh Jackman's willing to commit murder to get revenge. And after he shoots off two of Christian Bale's fingers, the twin then has to do that as well. So, you know, he resorts to chopping off two of his twins' fingers so that they can continue this illusion of being one man. Hugh Jackman can't stand that Christian Bale has a wife, has success, is doing everything that he wants. So he goes to America to visit Tesla, have him create this machine. Tesla says when they're talking,
Mr. Angier, have you considered the cost of such a machine?
Price is not an object.
Perhaps not, but have you considered the cost?
I'm not sure I follow.
Go home. Forget this thing. I can recognize an obsession. No good will come of it.
But at this point, they're both too far committed, even in the face of someone straight up telling him, hey, I can make you this machine. It will not end well. And even later on, we see when he delivers it to him in the note, he's like, my advice would be destroy this. So all the red flags are there. All the warning signs are there. But he is committed to this. I need to have the greatest trick. I need to get revenge on Christian Bale for killing my wife. And he has committed to this obsession. And even so far that he's lost himself.
This is his diary, Olivia. All of his secrets are right here in my hands.
It won't bring your wife back.
I don't care about my wife. I care about his secret.
He's gone. He's someone else. His life has been forever changed by this obsession of revenge.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because his initial goal post her being killed is, hey, what knot did you tie? I need to find out what knot. It's all about his wife. It's all about revenge for his wife. Then the focus of his effort is on beating Borden that becomes more important to him as he goes down this road. His obsession has pushed him further than he would have ever wanted to go. And that's the point where red flags really start to come up. Tesla says that thing you mentioned. Michael Caine's character says, I can't go any further into this with you. Obsession is a young man's game. Everybody's telling him, like, pump the brakes, buddy. Look at yourself. Right. But he's unable to do that.
And same for Christian Bale's character.
I can't live like this.
Oh, well, you think I can live like this? You think I bloody enjoy living like this?
Alfred, I can't live like this!
Well, what do you want from me?
I want you to be honest with me. No tricks. No lies. No secrets.
He has committed. He's gone too far. And so even when his life starts to fall apart, he can't give up this thing that he's obsessed with, which is the illusion itself.
Yeah, it comes from Christian Bale's mouth most, but both of them tell themselves that to be great requires sacrifice. And so everybody else who's speaking up and telling me I've gone too far, they don't have what it takes to be great. They can't get their hands dirty the way that I can. And Tesla, again, such an important line where he says, have you considered the cost?
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, they can't see that this is a bad economic exchange. Like, what it costs them and what they get from it is not equal. Like, they're not in the green here. Like, it's going to cost them more than they get back.
Exactly.
Jesus in Luke 14 says, for which of you desiring to build a tower does not sit down and first count the cost, whether he is able to complete it? He goes on to tell this story about a guy who begins this project and doesn't have enough money to pay it off in the end, ultimately telling us you need to know what you're getting yourself into when you go all in as a disciple. But it goes both ways. Like, whenever you're committing your life to something, know what it's going to cost you and know what you're going to get in return. And I think about the woman at the well. Like, Jesus says, if you drink this water, you'll be thirsty again. I can give you water that'll become a spring in you welling up to eternal life, right? Yeah. And so if we truly want satisfaction, fulfillment, it's found in Jesus. And I think a lot of times we can get caught in this, like, if I just achieve this, do this, hit that goal, I'll have made it. I'll have satisfaction. I'll have fulfillment. I'll have all the things I'm desiring. But ultimately, we've never seen anyone fulfilled by that.
Yeah. We talked about how this episode is a good pairing with last episode where we talked about discipline. It's also a good pairing with our other Christopher Nolan episode in Interstellar.
Yeah.
Because we talked about considering the cost in that one. And like you said, Jesus is talking about considering the cost of following him. But the key distinction between considering the cost of following Jesus and considering the cost of following the world is, in the end, Jesus has promised us it's worth it to follow him, that there will be a cost associated with being a follower of Jesus, but it's worth it. In Proverbs 14:12, it says, there's a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death. We can convince ourselves, like you're saying, if I get that thing, I'll be fulfilled. And ultimately, nothing else leads to life. You know, Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He's the only thing that's going to lead to satisfaction, eternal life with God. So ultimately, what this whole conversation centers around is the reason why all these pursuits don't fulfill, all these worldly pursuits, whatever they are, won't satisfy us, is our life on earth here is very short, but we will live forever somewhere. James 4:14 says, why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. This life we live on earth is going to be so quick and over. And then all of these things that you pursued in your life, you can't take with you. 1 John 2:15 through 17 says, do not love the world or anything in the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. And so that true fulfillment that we want to last for all of eternity comes from God. Philippians 3:7-8 says, "But whatever were gains to me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. I consider them garbage that I may gain Christ." I'm going to live with God forever and be totally satisfied in him. So why would I pursue anything else now? And that's this illusion of fulfillment that we so easily fall into, that these magicians have fallen into, is rather than anything else that as an audience you feel like would fulfill them, whether that's their wife or whatever, they have now poured everything into revenge and becoming the ultimate magician. And at the end of the movie, we see leads to death for both of them. And then they're left with nothing. Nothing carries on with them after that.
The movie would present the idea that if you follow this obsession beyond the point where it's beneficial for you, like it's better to just have balance, you know? Like you can pursue greatness, but if you go too far, then that's where you get in trouble. In reality for us, like I think that we can have an intensity in our pursuit of whatever it is. The difference for us is like whatever we do, whether we eat or drink, we do it to the glory of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so we always have the perspective that like anything that's happening through us, if we have the Holy Spirit indwelling in us, is coming from God. And so one, we conduct ourselves in a way that honors him. And two, we understand that nothing is from us, right?
Yeah.
And so that keeps us from pushing and pushing and pushing and feeling like we need to do more and more and more to the point where we lose sight of what our initial goal even is.
The only thing that we have a surety in is God. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He has given us promises, and he is a God who keeps his promises. So we can have pursuits, we can have hobbies, we can have careers, we can have relationships, not putting our surety in those things because we ultimately don't have control, which is a little teaser for in a couple weeks from now. We'll talk about Jurassic Park and the illusion of control. Just like you mentioned, that scene where Hugh Jackman's character has created the real illusion where he's actually transported a different body, but he still now is obsessed with learning Christian Bale's method. People are saying this act is the best ever, and he's still like, I have to figure out how he does it.
Yeah. You see the evolution of his obsession even one more time. So it starts with what knot did you tie? Revenge for his wife. Then it's, I don't care about my wife. I care about his secret. Then we see in the end, whenever he's in the jail, he hands him the prestige to the real transported man.
Goodbye, Professor. Come on, darling. No. Stop, darling. Stop. Look. Here.
That's what you're after. That's what this is about. Take it.
Your secret?
Yeah.
You always were the better magician.
We both know that.
But whatever your secret was, you have to agree.
Mine is better.
He doesn't care about his secret anymore. And so it's evolved so far beyond what it originally was. Now all he wants to do is he says, I won. And he wants to just torture his enemy. Like, that's where this obsession has led him to.
Even to the point of, I'm going to put you in jail and let you hang for a murder I framed you for, and then I'm going to adopt your daughter. And I'm going to steal her.
Yeah. As we talk about this, the real arc is for Hugh Jackman, because it seems like Borden is pretty consistent throughout. He gets a little bit more intense, but we see Hugh Jackman go from like just kind of a, naive young guy to basically a monster because of how far he pushes in and pushes in and pushes in. Whenever you chase an obsession like this, it's essentially an addiction. Once it's beyond the point of benefiting you anymore and you keep going further and further and further, ignoring all the people telling you to stop, it just leads to this emptiness and destruction. And it's a really sad end to a movie, honestly.
It's a pretty tragic tale.
Nobody really has a happy ending except sort of the daughter whenever she's reunited with her dad.
But she lost her mom.
I mean, it's a really sad story. It's very much a cautionary tale, but it's rare for such a depressing end to be so satisfying,
Imagine that little girl talking to her dad later. Hey, what happened when I was 3? Like that guy Fallon was always around.
Why-
Mom killed herself. I got adopted for a little bit.
Why did Fallon come touch my ears?
That's got to be confusing for her. She's going to have to go to some therapy.
Yeah.
Like you said, that I mean, they have both lost their life in the end. It's tragic for both of them. So Christian Bale's character ultimately gets put in prison and hanged. He loses his life. And then Hugh Jackman's character pulls it off. You know, he quote unquote won. He got his revenge and he got the best trick. And you see, literally, he's been killing himself every night. So he's been creating clones of himself that he drowns every single night.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of example of he's losing himself, like killing himself,
The sacrifice required,
and then, of course, he ends up fully dying. Both of them, in pursuing what they wanted, leaves nothing but emptiness. Brings us back to that main verse, Matthew 16:26, for what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul?
Yeah, I was just about to bring it back to that too. Like, it's such an interesting word. What will it profit a man? You know, profit is whenever you take the cost out, what you have left of your income. And again, the line we keep referencing of Tesla saying, have you considered the cost? For each of the characters, the cost was not worth it. They continue to press in further and further and further and commit their lives to this.
That final scene is so creepy. He shoots him, which, by the way, Hugh Jackman just has the longest dying line ever. Yeah. You know, he gets shot and then he has
probably more accurate than most movie gunshots, though. Like, I feel like
he sits there for a long time talking.
Yeah, but most movie in the movies, if someone gets shot in like the shoulder, they just are instant death. I feel like this was probably more accurate to an actual gunshot
that he's bleeding out.
Yeah.
But then the reveal, Borden goes up to that one of the many rows of water tanks, wipes away the dust and sees that the clone is in there. And you realize all of these tanks are filled with clones that he's been killing himself. Just a very like harrowing image, very cool reveal, the scariness, the dirtiness of what this obsession has led to.
Yeah. A great trick requires sacrifice. Both of them feel like they've given the ultimate sacrifice. Hugh Jackman gives his life every night. Christian Bale has dedicated every part of his life to it. Yeah. And ultimately, it's like, got to count the cost.
The magician takes the ordinary something and makes it into something extraordinary. But you wouldn't clap yet, because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back.
I was thinking about that as that final line for our conversation of, one, neither of these guys succeeded in bringing their normal life back. They started out as, you know, normal guys, and both of them end up finding love. They pursue greatness, making something ordinary extraordinary, and then they are unable to bring their life back to any sort of normalcy. You know, they mention that they're talking about the bullet catch. When he finally explains the bullet catch to her, she's like, well, once you know, it's actually quite obvious, which is a fun metaphor for this movie. Once you know, hey, nothing else leads to satisfaction. The way to Christ is the only way. And it's so simple. John 17:3, this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent.
Yeah.
It's laid out for us. We know it. The key to life is Christ, and he's given us the key. He's unlocked the door. It's right there for us. Once you get it, you get it. You're like, oh, yeah. Like, all of that is nothing.
Yeah.
But our human nature, we don't want it to be that simple. He also says in that line, you're not really looking, you want to be fooled. Still, we get pulled into the illusion of more money would be nice. Fame could be nice. Popularity, whatever. We want to be fooled, even though it's really so simple.
That's the illusion, is that there is satisfaction waiting for us whenever we accomplish our goals.
I love this movie. I love all of the things that you can find when you watch back.
When I think about Christopher Nolan movies, I think about like high concept, good sci-fi, playing a lot with time. I don't think about like thematically driven as much as this movie was watching it for this.
On your first watch, did you recognize that Fallon was also Christian Bale?
Definitely not. I think I watched it for the first time in high school.
Yeah.
And I think I was confused. I don't think I really even noticed Fallon.
Yeah.
He never speaks. He's such a minor character.
Yeah.
That whenever he's like, a twin, you were Fallon. I was kind of like, what? But then when you rewatch, it's like, oh,
see,
there he is.
I've heard people talk about, like, once you see it, you know, you're like, oh yeah, that's Christian Bale in a big mustache and glasses.
Totally.
And I've heard some people be like, yeah, I caught it on the first watch. It's like not disguised at all. And you're like, well, I guess it does seem pretty obvious.
There's a few points where the dialogue gives it away too. The non-Fallon Christian Bale saying, give it up, we're done, don't go back there. And then one who was Fallon is the one who's arrested.
Yeah.
And he tells him, I should have listened to you. I shouldn't have gone back there.
Or when his wife tells him she's pregnant and his first response,
we should have told Fallon.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
That's a weird response for a husband to say to their creepy best friend.
Right.
Just wandered away.
Yeah.
Something I caught this time that I've never caught before, when he's in prison and the lawyer comes to him offering him money for all of his tricks. He's like, you know, talk to Borden. And he's like, I already did. He gave me everything except the transported man. Mm-hmm. And he says, well, I wouldn't forgive myself for selling my greatest trick. And you think he's talking about, yeah, I can't give up my trick. Mm-hmm. But he's saying I, a.k.a. Borden, wouldn't forgive me for giving up the trick. Mm-hmm. Or I wouldn't forgive Borden for giving up the trick. Things like that. That's what makes this movie so rewatchable and just so enjoyable.
It's great.
Great conversation. Abracadabra. Roll credits.
Nice. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and on Instagram at The Credits Podcast. If you know someone who would love this episode, go ahead and shoot it to them in a text. If it doesn't brighten their day, it'll certainly brighten ours.